After Yes Band completing their drama tour in 1981, the band announced their dissolution, and guitarist Steve Howe and keyboardist Jeff Downe joined and formed the supergroup Asia afterward. Together, they released the self-titled album Asia in 1982, made them one of the most famous band that walked on the planet. However, as the Asia's second album, Alpha, progressed, Steve Howe gradually became discontented with the behavior of the band's frontman, John Wetton, and the musical direction of the band. Ultimately, following the release of Alpha, he decided to call it a day, taking his guitar with him and leave the band. At the other hand, after leaving Genesis Band in 1977, Steve Hackett dedicated himself as a solo music career and embarked on relevant tours. However, his album sales in the 1980s were mediocre and leading to his financial problems. Consequently, he started looking for alternative sources of income. In 1985, when Brian Lane, the former manager of the band Yes, contacted Hackett and Howe, he proposed the formation of a supergroup featuring two prominent guitarists.
We were talking to Brian Lane one day about forming a band. I said to him, I'd like to form a band. And he said, well, you know, I've got Steve Howe in the same position.
Brian called me up and said, you know, I've just spoke to Steve Hackett. He's not doing much. Do you fancy meeting him and just seeing if there's anything going on?
What if you put two guitarists together? And he said straight away, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be like sticking Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck together. Straight away.
The establishing of GTR seemed like a wet dream come true for prog rock fans. Feature former Yes member Steve Howe and former Genesis guitarist Steve Hackett as its main highlights of the band, along with vocalist Max Bacon, bassist Phil Spaulding, who had previously collaborated with Hackett, and drummer Jonathan Mover, who had briefly worked with Marillion. You may have already noticed that there's no chair for a keyboard player in the band. Instead, the band utilizes guitar synthesizers to replicate keyboard sounds with their guitars, which also serves as a key feature of the group. The rehearsals and recordings took place in London, including Abbey Road Studio. Howe brought over 40 guitars into the studio to ensure the best possible tones for the recordings.
Heart to Win the Heart, which goes, the riff is something like, and it was on the guitar synth. This was something that Steve first played me when we got together.
The band's first written song, When the Heart Rules the Mind, became a chart-topping hit and received heavy rotation on MTV. Additionally, producer Jeff Downe contributed the materials of second popular single, The Hunter, 2. Both Howe and Hackett also contributed guitar solo compositions for the album, like Sketches in the Sun and Hackett to Bits. Some moment of the songs does reminiscent of their works with Yes and Genesis. GTR album was released by Arista in May 1986, surpassing sales of over 500,000 copies and securing album charts for weeks. Coincidentally, Hackett's former band, Genesis, also claimed chart success around the same time with their album Invisible Touch. Everything seemed to be heading in the right direction as GTR's members began organizing tours to support their album. However, when they on the tour, the delays and other flaws in the guitar synthesizers forced them to consider hiring a keyboardist to fill the gap, leading them to contact Matt Clifford eventually. The GTR album experienced success, with songs being played in heavy rotation on MTV, solid sales, and successful tour performances. There were even rumors circulating about the band working on their second album. It was quite odd when Hackett decided to leave the band afterward. Perhaps we could find more of the reasons in subsequent interviews. In a 1993 interview with Anil Prasad, Hackett attributed his departure to ongoing financial struggles within the band. Despite their commercial success, significant funds were required for mixing, production, and other expenses, leading Hackett to choose to leave rather than endure further financial strain. Before Steve Hackett officially left GTR, rumors circulated that he had invited Brian May from Queen to join GTR in order to prolong the band's vitality. However, things didn't go as planned. After Hackett and drummer Mover departed, Steve Howe attempted to keep the band going with remaining members, such as bassist Spaulding and vocalist Bacon, at the same time inviting other musicians to participate in meetings and recordings. But eventually, the record company abandoned GTR due to a lack of convincing reasons. Ultimately, this short-lived supergroup project came to an end, with a harsh criticism by J.D. Considine, seeming to serve as the epitaph of the band. After leaving GTR, Steve Hackett and Steve Howe returned to their own projects. It wasn't until 1988 when John Anderson reached out to Howe again, sharing his idea of forming a new band with former Yes members after John left Yes, and eventually leading to the forming of the band: Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe. That's all for today's video. If you have any advice for next video, or even comment regarding our content and channel, please feel free to do so. Till next time.